Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this TriFold pull-through card. It has a window on the front, but when you pull this little tab, there are 3 panels on the inside. It's using the new Friends of the Ocean Designer Series paper out of the Holiday Mini Catalogue. And look, I absolutely love this paper. It's my favourite right now. So let's get started. It's using a piece of the Summer Splash, which is one of the in colours, current in colours, and it's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. So it's the regular size that we know and love, and it fits into a standard envelope. I've then got a piece of the Designer Series paper, and it's cut down the 1/4 inch smaller, so it's 4 by 5 1/4, but we're going to cut the window out of it. So I didn't want to stick it all down and then waste the piece that will pop out. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to bring in my rolling adhesive. It will need the adhesive down the edges, of course, but then around about 2 inches more or less is where the window will be. So I'm only going to stick it here, because if we don't put anything in the middle, that window has a chance to sort of gape open. So I'm going to guesstimate it at there and then stick it on the front. And then we've also got the inside panel, which is, again, it's 5 1/4, but it's 8 1/4, and it's scored at 2 3/4 and 5.5. And that conveniently, ever so nicely, just thirds. So we can make sure we've got it opening the right way. So this is the side that sticks down to the inside of the card. And then there are the little layered of windows. And this is 2 3/4 square. No, that's a lie. The piece that comes out is 2 3/4 square. This lovely lemon lime twist layer is 2 5/8, and the white is 2 3/8. As always, of course, the directions and dimensions will be on my blog, so I suggest you go there and believe what you read rather than what you hear, because sometimes I just get carried away, so I apologize for that. This piece will be 2 3/4, 2 5/8, 2 3/8. I then fussy cut a crab out of the big sheet, because Stampin' Up are giving us sheets with bigger pieces that you can fussy cut out. So that's what the crab is. And then there is a banner cut with stylish shapes and a little piece of basic white to stamp the greeting on. But let's go ahead and get this window cut out. Now, I would probably use my squares, but I think the last time I made this card, I said not everybody has the dies, because the dies can be quite an investment. And if you've got a paper trimmer, you can get the same effect. So there will be a template for what I'm going to tell you, because it helps everything come to the right side. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the edge of the cardstock at 3/4. Oh, and disclaimer here, I stood up to do this, so I'm very close to my camera, so if I've suddenly gone very loud, I don't mean to shout, I do apologize. So it's lined up at 3/4 inch, and then what we're going to do is we're going to find 3/4 inch on this ruler and poke the paper cutter in, and we're going to cut down to 3.5 inches. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move the whole card over, and in order to get it in the right place, we're going to line this edge of it up at 5 inches. Like I say, there will be a template for this on my blog with all these pertinent little pieces of information. So line the far side up at 5, and again, we're going to go in at 3 1/4 on this vertical ruler, and we're going to cut down to 3.5 inches. So both of those slits are the same. And then what we need to do is turn this over, and because we came down to 3 3/4, because we came down to 3/4 inch, we're going to line it up at 3/4 on the paper cutter, and we're going to cut between the two marks, which will miraculously be 3/4 down to 3.5. And you can just stop when you get to that cut line. And then what we need to do is, you remember we started at the top at 3/4 of an inch and we cut down to 3.5. So if we line this side up at 3.5, that will be just at the bottom of where that cut line is. So again, because it's a square, we'll go in at 3/4 and we'll cut down to 3.5. And that should get us, I'm going to sit down now so I can stop shouting. That should get us the square out of the cardstock. Now it could be that the corners have missed by, you know, a hair's breadth. So sometimes it just pops out. Sometimes you need to persuade it to come on out. So let me just go in here and cut this. Down to the 3.5 inch mark. Let me release this one at the top. Of course, when I made the sample, the whole thing just popped out, easy peasy. But then I guess it's probably a good idea to show the struggle. So let me just pop the designer series paper off. This piece we can keep for another project. This piece we have to hang on to because it's part of the card. So there you have it. So now we've got a 2 3/4 window, a 2 3/4 square that's going to go back on the inside. So that's all the cutting. So let me move the paper trimmer out of the way, and then let's get back to building the card. Now this came out of there and it's going to be really snug. So you can either put it back into your paper trimmer. What I like to do, just to be sure that it will move, is cut literally a hair off. You know what? I'm going to use my trusty other scissors because they're a little bit bulkier. Just so we've got some room. I mean, you can see how much I'm cutting off. It's just like a slither. But if we cut that slither, it just makes the window, it just gives it enough. So we've got these two curly whirly little bits of why did I bother, but it can make a difference. So now we've got our square. So we will pop the lemon lime twist. So this is what's 2 3/4. That's what I got mixed up with earlier. So 2 3/4. Lemon lime twist is 2 5/8. So we'll pop that onto here. And then the basic white is 2 3/8. So again, we'll just pop that into place on the front. So now we've got all of our layers building up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the TriFold part that pulls out. So you just need to make sure that you've got it, that this piece will stick down and this is the piece that will open. I mean, if you stuck the wrong side down, it's not really wrong because there's nothing on it. You would just have to refold your folds. And because it's going to be tugged at a little bit, you can either stick it on with the tear and tape, but I'm actually just going to use my liquid glue just because it gives us a little bit of firmness when we're trying to keep things together. So, oops, touching everything. So I'm just going to pop that into place. So it's going to just be the 1/4 inch around. Am I doing this the right way? No, not even paying attention to my own advice. There we go. So now you can see that this has the usual layered size around and it opens this way. This video is turning out to be a here's what not to do, but anyway, that's where it needs to be now. So when you open the card, this will pull across. And then if we close the window, this square is going to go back, but only on this area. So if you keep the window closed, and put glue just in this area. And again, I'm using the liquid glue because it needs to be quite strong because it's going to get pulled against. And then we can just line this up in that window and hold it down for just a second. So while that's doing its little trick, I will put the lid back on my glue. So there you have it. You've now got the window that will move. It will pull through. If it sounds like it's a little bit tight, you can give it a trim. But I find once I've pulled it once or twice, it sort of loosens up a little bit. So here's the inside that you could write screeds, you could put a message on. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a piece of pumpkin pie, trying to match all the colours. And I'm going to use Melon Mambo. And I've got a stamp that says, just a note. This is from an old kit from way, way back. But I felt it was just a nice greeting. A lot of these are ex-paper pumpkin kits, but I'm sure everyone has a stamp in their stash that they could use. So stick this onto the little banner that we cut with the stylish shapes. And I think this little piece of white is 1.5 by 5/8 if you wanted to be exact, but it was really just a scrap that I had that I stuck on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it on with dimensionals, but I used up all the hexagons of my dimensionals. So what I'm going to do now is just cut some pieces of the edges because they're still sticky and they're still dimensional, and they will just go on just as nicely. Peel off the backing papers. Make sure the greeting is the right way up. At least I can do that. And then this little crab that I fussy cut out of the paper, I'm going to stick on with some mini dimensionals because they just seem to fit nicely within his claws. So put one there and one in the middle. So we'll quickly fling these across my stamping room, same like the rest of the stuff. And then pop that on the front of the card. Now when I made the sample, I'd use an old punch. It's a little oval, but it's retired. So if you have this punch or something similar or a circle, you could put that on. But then what I thought I would do was show how you can make it with just a little piece of scrap paper. So it's the Summer Splash, and it is 1.5 by 5/8. And what I did was I put tear and tape on, actually I put tear and tape on one side. It needs tear and tape on both sides, otherwise one side won't stick down. I put that on just to sort of get ahead of the game. So I just put tear and tape on both sides. And then you can peel the backing paper off. Oh, come on. Help, it won't come off. And then what we need to do is pull out the tab and stick it into place. So we're just going to go onto there a little way, line it up with the edge of the square, which is easier to do of course than it is with an oval. And then the last step is in this set which I had from Christmas, the hang and ornament. It has a little stamp that says pull, and I thought rather than have people guess and open the card and then realize there's 3 panels inside, if I stamp pull gently on there, people will know what to do. So let me go ahead and pop that back through the window, and that is the card. So you pull this and then there's space to stamp greetings, write greetings, whatever you want to do. There's an awful lot of space, a little bit more than usual, I think. So there you have it, my lovelies. There, let me just give that a quick press with the bone folder and help it to stay closed. So there we have it. It's a TriFold pull-through card. Oops. To the same. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. If you like what you've seen, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you forgive me for all the mistakes I've made in this darn video, please give me a thumbs up. And last but not least, thanks so much for watching.